Assalamu alaikum. So just continuing on from our previous video, reason number 3 why European Muslim sub-communities are needed, um, and that is born convert disaster marriages. Um, the idea of marrying into a Muslim family as a quick fix, and that's usually why a lot of Muslim converts get married, is that it's a systemic issue, right? So this is something that is just kind of inbred into the whole situation of having a Muslim community in the West or a mosque in the West that is mainly run by people of a different ethnic background than the native population. That's not just in Europe, this is in all over the world as well. Um, Obviously a lot of mosques, they really don't have sufficient resources to fill in these enormous gaps that converts experience upon conversion, because they face extreme estrangement from their family. Even if they didn't mind their conversion to Islam, they're still living a completely different lifestyle. They have to deal with loss of family members. They have to deal with drug and alcohol addiction. They have to deal with job loss. Especially for sisters, they're placed in a very precarious situation. But as Brother Omar Lee pointed out, and I agree with him with this, is that immigrant mosques are just simply not equipped to deal with converts' problems, and they shouldn't be expected to either, right? So, I mean, there's some examples I can give you from my personal life where there was exceptions to these rules. Like I remember a brother, Jamaican convert of Jamaican background. He said that when he converted, the imam, who was also of a Jamaican background, he said when he converted, he said, "I want to talk to your family." So the imam, the convert brother, he brought his family in, and the imam talked with them and made sure they didn't have any misgivings or misconceptions, right? And then the brother, he said, "Well, I know what you guys are thinking." Because he was both talking to us. We were both white, and me and my convert friend were just like, "Yeah, there's no white imams, right?" And he pretty much agreed with us. It's difficult, when you're trying to explain Islam to the converts' family members when they have all these misconceptions, and on top of that, they're just not from the same background, so you might not understand the nuances of the language and the culture. But in any case, normally their solution, Moss will propose a solution, and it's usually the only one they have, and we'll just marry you into a Muslim family, and that'll solve, all of your problems. And a lot of times converts will go along with this as well. But if I can use an analogy here, recommending marriage into a Muslim family to solve the problems of the convert, especially the recent convert, is like trying to put out a house fire with an unknown canister of liquid, right? So it could be water, it could be pure gasoline, and that's usually the case, right? So, and then on top of this, you have to realize that converts, especially new converts, they have to learn how to pray, they have to learn Arabic, they have to learn how to fast, they have to learn a completely different new lifestyle. It's like tossing a grade school student into like a graduate level program, and they have to learn all these things. And then on top of that, by marrying into a Muslim culture, you have to learn a completely different set of cultural norms on top of that. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and a lot of converts, they can't handle it. Some of them can, but the vast majority are not going to be able to. So to understand why converts attract these kind of disaster marriages, we need to look at first at the marriage culture among Muslim communities. So as Muslims, we do not believe in dating, right? So you may think, well, how do you find if your spouse is going to be compatible if that's the case? Because in dating, you're trying to weed people out as, who's compatible, who's not. So most of the time, Muslim parents will make up for this lack by investigating for their son or daughter, by asking around, and networking, in their family and their town, just to, and that way you can sort of hear through the grapevine, potential suitors or a good match. They'll ask about temperament, they'll ask about job prospects, they'll ask about drug addiction, they'll ask about their family values, if they had any affairs beforehand, if they have any STDs. So the lack of information that Westerners normally get through dating is made up for the fact that the Muslim family will investigate for the on behalf of the son or the daughter, or a lot of times they'll marry within the same family, so they already know what this person is about, right? So they'll have them marry their first or second cousin. But for converts, we don't have a Muslim family, right? So a lot of the times these converts will, go into these marriages completely blind. They'll do no screening process. They'll just find somebody online or someone that someone knows through the mosque or someone knows through the imam, without any, delving into if this person's going to be suitable for them or how their families are going to react or what the cultural differences will be, right? So Islamic leadership do not often understand this gap, So as I stated before in my previous video, assimilating converts into the Muslim community does not account for our huge situational differences, right? So many times a convert will not involve their family at all. They'll just say, "Oh, I'm going to get married to this guy, and you're not going to stop me." And usually the Islamic leadership, not understanding these issues, will just go along with this and say, "Yeah, well, your family's kuffar, and you can't take recommendations from them. So just marry into a Muslim family, and everything will be okay." And it's usually, since the imam usually replaces the Muslim family as the wali or the guardian, often for the sister, this can be even more disastrous because imams are busy guys. They don't have the time to investigate if this potential spouse is going to be suitable. They don't understand the cultural differences between converts and born Muslims. And usually when these brothers are with the imams, they're going to be on their best behavior. So, they're not going to act like they normally do in the public, right? So if you really want to find out if this brother's suitable, you investigate, what this guy's like, when he's working. How does he treat his employees? How does he treat his coworkers? As opposed to like just a mosque where everyone's just trying to act like an angel, especially when they're in front of the imam. So this dynamic just pushes the convert further and further away from their family. So, for one example, I saw one female convert who was divorced with kids. She didn't ask anything for a mahar, basically nothing. She found a born Muslim man online. Seemed like a nice guy. They maybe met once or twice. He was good with their kids. And then a weekend after the marriage and the honeymoon, the guy went completely AWOL. Just gone. Like no contact, couldn't even contact them by phone. Just completely unable to reach. So that's just one example. So let's look more at the common situation, and as opposed to, the convert trying to find a suitable spouse after they convert. So the other situation, which is more common, that leads to the born convert marriage, is that you have a non-practicing Muslim man, and they'll be dating a non-Muslim woman. This is what I term Nightclubbing Dawa. Now this dynamic is by far the most disastrous. Well, first of all, from a strictly Islamic perspective, these type of relationships shouldn't be happening at all, right? So, the most extreme form of this is the so-called, Islamic grooming gangs in Europe. Due to PC culture, any criticism of this Nightclubbing Dawa is seen as inherently racist and thus not criticized at all. Another reason why this might be criticized as much is that these types of relationship, really piss off white nationalists. So just because something is un-Islamic or anti-Islam and it pisses off your adversaries, it doesn't magically become halal, right? To this effect, you do not see, people, voices in the Muslim world like in the West, like Yaqeen Institute or Daniel Hakikaju, write articles or make videos on why these relationships shouldn't be happening, without very strict Islamic criteria. The only exception I've seen so far is Yasser Qadi, who says that he will not perform a marriage between a Kitabi woman and a Muslim man in a non-Muslim country. But even that, there's no way these couples are following the Sharia principle of talking to the sister's family. It's just not acceptable, right? Let's not mince words here. So it's not that Islamic leadership can play an active role in recommending that converts marry each other from the same background, or just converts marrying converts. They already get these couples that come in from these haram relationships in the hope that the girl will convert. So there's nothing they can do about this often, and I'm sure imams are well aware that this is there's a big chance it's not going to work out. So many of them just want the marriage to take place because at the end of the day, they just don't want them committing zina. Right? So that's the end of the second video for now. I'm going to continue on to part 3.